That's all good.
I'll just check if this thing is live. Are we live, guys? Let's see. Hope this is the right link. We're live? We're live? We're live? Yeah, we're live.
Are we?
Yep, we're live, mate.
Yeah, I think we are, yeah.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? All right, I'll just name a few people in the chat because a lot of people don't, and they're part of the show too. Hadrian, anti-bullying. Jimmy Hitar, who may be a Farfafini, I don't know. Go and borrow his comments. Hale Sewell, I think I know that dude. Volatar, Ballycopter, a regular. Aussie Jinjo, Wilms Front, Jared Seaby, Freedom Patriot, Revolutionary Act, Thomas Hinselwood, Hale Saw, and Stephanie. All right, so what's going on, mate? What's going on with the court case? Now, I don't know how you want to do this. Stefan done all the prep work. I'm just jumping on. Stefan was there at the court case every day, or the main day at least. He's seen the cross-examination of the witnesses. He was sitting in there with his video up like he is now. We'll get into that in a second. And he's been a part of this my defense team since how long, Stefan, would you say?
Probably at least 8 months, I reckon. He's been giving you advice. At the start, it was very light advice, and then it got more intensive as time went by. Yeah.
Yep. So, what's going on? What's going on with my case, mate? What do you think about it as an outsider?
Well, there's definitely it's very easy to deduce that different sections of Victoria Police are liaising with themselves, with each other. So counter-terrorism with, Muslim groups and also other areas within Victoria Police. I don't even know what their names are, but there's definitely there's definitely intention for you to be in prison. And we know that because they've tried it before in the past, as in 2014 with your stalking case, where they asked for 10 years, but also more recently, they asked for the full 3 months for you to go to prison. So that's the maximum punishment you can get for disturbing religious worship. And the prosecution did ask that from the judge. Was it Tuesday? Yeah, on Tuesday, yeah.
Sorry, boys, I muted that for a second. Yeah, so basically, we all know what the police are like, and Blair said it to me a long time ago. He said because they can't get us on big charges, what they're going to do is they're going to charge you with small, little charges that aren't important, but they add up. Eventually, you will go inside. I think that's what's happening here. I'll get into the other case a bit too later. That's actually going to be going to trial in July 29. Sorry, I'm speaking like this. I'm trying to speak quiet. But yeah, July 29 or 28, I think it's 28, the trial for the other one comes up. But it seems odd. It's always these weird laws. The first one was me, Blair, and Chris Shortis for inciting contempt against Muslims. That was never used criminally before. That was a 6-month maximum sentence. And we only got a $2,000 fine. And it was pretty graphic what we did, yeah? That's why I compared that to this magistrate and his sentencing, or it hasn't happened yet, but his sentencing is pretty strict, considering the charge is very low. It's only 3-month maximum. But yeah, we can get into that a bit later. But what did you think about the case? Because you've seen the witnesses when I was interviewing, cross-examining the witnesses. What did you take from that?
Yeah, so I tuned in on 2 of the 3 days, I think, and basically I saw the 2 main witnesses who weren't police officers. They were the first ones to be interviewed by the prosecution, and also cross-examined by yourself. So for those who don't know, the way it works is the prosecution, in this case the police, would interview their witnesses, and then Neil has the opportunity to cross-examine them and ask his questions to deduce to derive certain conclusions to help his case, his arguments. Anyway, so I saw Al Sayed. What was his? Was Muhammad? What was his first name? Do we allowed to say that? Or?
Yeah, I think we can name him now because it was an open court. I think his name was Assad Al Sayed.
Assad Al Sayed. So he's a representative of the Islamic Council of Victoria.
He's one of the presidents. I think he's one. I think there's like 4 presidents. I think he's one of the presidents of the Islamic Council of Victoria. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And we'll talk about ICV, Islamic Council of Victoria, a bit later. There's a bit of controversy with them in the past, but essentially, according to yourself, mate, he was quite honest.
His name. Sorry. His name's Ramzi Al Sayed.
Ramzi. Okay.
Yeah, Ramzi.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, based on my conversation with you, you were quite happy with the way he answered the questions. He wasn't making things up. He wasn't over embellishing things. He just said what he felt was correct, and he didn't claim that he was disturbed. So that's something I want you to explore. What happened with that? He didn't actually tell anyone in the court that he felt disturbed from your actions.
The main issue with this charge is, so the charge reads, it's very old, and I know I've said this a lot, but I don't think people can grasp how actually old this charge is. I mean, it's from Queensland, 1899, around Federation, when they brought all the English laws over and decided which ones we're going to have. But that's not when the law was created. That's just when we created it here. We brought it over. It's actually from 1688. It's the Toleration Act. Now, it was invented because there's a whole history on it. It's online. I can share links to people that want to read it. It's pretty boring, but the case is interesting in this aspect, like in 2021, but because it was intended for Protestants arguing about the Trinity with the Catholics. It was another religious group, but a Christian group, arguing about the Trinity, and the Protestants. The Protestants wanted a place where they could go and, pray, etc. And I think the Catholics were going around smashing them up and shit. But there was certain rules where they were protected under the Toleration Act, and it was they couldn't offend the law, God's law. They couldn't offend it. So there were certain guidelines they could do, and they kind of talked about what the restrictions were. So the Protestants can do this little difference to Christianity, and it was all structured like that. So then they implemented it in 1899 around Federation when we got all them charges. That's why the Summary Act and all that, certain dates, it's when they changed the rules. So that was implemented to Queensland in 1899, and then I think in 1966 it was moved over to Victoria to the Summary Offences Act. So, but the charge reads, actually, I'll keep talking, have a chat, and I'll actually get the charge up and I'll read it to the viewers.
Sure. So while you're looking for it, I just wanted to confirm, because we had a discussion some time ago with, for example, just to put it into context with some people, in America and a lot of countries, but let's just take America as an example, the US Constitution, there are 2 main different schools of thought of how to interpret the application of what constitutes the American Constitution. And there's the first one is the idea that it's a living sort of document that evolves over time. So, for example, the right to bear arms, according to, people of that school of thought, I'm pretty sure they would say, but sure, does that mean that we have a right to bear bazookas and
but that's amendments though. They changed that in courts.
Exactly, and you're right about that. Then there's the originalist thought. So what you call originalists, and most conservatives subscribe to originalism, and that's when you basically interpret the law based on how the founders of that law would have seen it. So according to this law, it seems pretty clear that this law was intended only for Christians. Is that correct?
Yes. According to this law, I read up on I don't know if he was a professor, but he was a legal graduate who went in great depth, because this is one of the last blasphemy type laws that we have in Australia or in the West. And he went into great depth about how I think he might even be a lefty even, but he went into like how we're going to get rid of the blasphemy laws. And he went through each blasphemy law we have in Australia. Some don't exist anymore, and he's going through it. And he even says, at the law that I'll read the charge now. The charge is under the Summary Offences Act of 1966, Section 21, disturbing religious worship. Any person who willfully and without lawful justification or excuse the proof of which lies on him, disquiets or disturbs any meeting of persons lawfully assembled for religious worship, or assaults any person lawfully officiating at any such meeting, or any of the persons there assembled, shall be guilty of an offence. Penalty is 15 penalty units or imprisonment for 3 months. A prosecution for an offence must be conducted within 3 months. Well, it was. But the charge, as it reads, it doesn't specifically say what religion. Okay, and this is the trick here. It says religious or religion, worship, etc. And it doesn't actually say it has to be in a mosque or in a church, etc. So that's the other problem. But what was I getting at when I brought up this charge? So basically, it's not for Islam, and that's one of my points in my appeal. So, would you think a charge like this is for Islam if it was made in 1688 in England?
I don't think Islam was a big factor in that sort of society about 300, 400 years ago. I highly doubt that people back then really cared about Islam. In fact, they probably hated Islam. But when they created this law, they intended it for Christians, So, I'm just wondering, hopefully, when you go to the county court you're going to go to appeal, is that the court you're going to go to? Or?
Well, I'm going to look into it. I could subvert the whole county court process. That's what our lawyer, or Blair's lawyer at the time, John Bolton, tried to do. He tried to. The trick is you've got to get these cases out of Victoria. This is the biggest problem because Daniel Andrews picks the judges and the magistrates, and they all rule on party lines, Labor Party lines. So the trick is to get it out of Victoria. Blair couldn't do that. They denied John Bolton. I think John Bolton paid $6,000 to even have it heard, kind of the argument heard. And they pushed it back down to the county court and said our judge can argue the Constitution. They've been trained, etc. But look, I'm going to try my hardest to get up to the High Court. That aspect of my appeal is very simple. It's not like going to be a complicated issue. It's going to be, was this intended for Muslims as well as Christians? And all the documents are there. I've got it all. It's not. They probably have more documents even in their files. But when it gets up to there, they can rule and say, how George Pell, 7 judges ruled in his favour, and yet in the magistrates and county court they all ruled against him. It's a like whether George Pell's guilty or not, I don't care, but it's the law. It has to follow the law, and that's a point of law. And they can't turn around and say, well, we're in a multicultural society now. Yeah, but that law has not been amended to protect Muslims. Where was it amended? So you can't have a charge that's for a certain crime and then just change the meaning of what it's for. So let's just change shoplifting because people are poor. Maybe these days, only shoplifting applies to rich people. You know what I mean? You can't really do that, I don't think, legally.
So you're basically not going to argue that since 1688 or whatever it was, the law hasn't been amended to cater for Muslims and other religious minorities. It's only for Christians.
From what I have read, it hasn't been amended. The only amendment was the Summary Offences Act, and it was just basically moved from, I don't know, I think we just had common law, and I think they moved it to the Summary Offences Act. They just moved this charge around. There was never actually any engagement from judges to change the meaning of the charge, because then it would have said, they would have actually changed the wording of the charge. But anyway, we'll get back to what happened at court. So basically, you come. I was charged with disturbing religious worship. I think everyone in the chat would know what I allegedly did. I went to a Fed Square, public space, with a megaphone and said Muhammad was a false prophet. This was prior to the event starting. The event was meant to start at 1 o'clock. It was call to prayer, which literally means come and pray, guys. Get ready. Now, all in the statements and the witness testimony said that I think Ramsey Al Saeed said, we're waiting for the big event. Remember he said that? We're waiting for the big event. It was about to start. We're getting excited when it happened. Okay, so that means the event hasn't started yet. Okay. Aisha Bucks, the other witness who claimed she was praying in the mind, she said that in a statement that she was getting prayer mats ready, waiting for the prayer. Yeah. Well, you can't have a prayer if you're already waiting for a prayer. The other argument is because the charge actually reads group of persons meeting for religious worship. Now, the witnesses all claimed that the pre-prayer prior to 1 o'clock, which you could see a couple of people may have been praying, maybe you could see in the footage, but they were individual prayers according to Ramzi Al Sayed. They're individual prayers. They don't class group of persons. That was one of my other arguments as well. It's probably boring for a lot of guys out there, but you have to get right into the evidence. Now, the other thing is, so in the statements, I probably won't name too many people now, but anyway, one of the organisers for the event went and met with Federation Square, met for a coffee, and then they discussed the event coming up, and they agreed on it. Now, when I was first charged, I asked the police, where's the booking information? Because a lot of people probably don't know from interstate. Federation Square is a public space. It's owned by the government, but it's ran privately, but it is a public space. Nearly 99% of all protests in Victoria either start at Federation Square or end there. I've been to dozens of protests there. It's always been a public space. So you can organise to have events there. You can have security, etc. But it is essentially a public place. So the person that met with the Federation Square met for a coffee. They organised the event. We're going to have it here. And so I emailed the informant, the police, which is the investigator. Have you got paperwork for this thing? Oh, no, we don't have anything. And I said, could you get me the paperwork? Because I want to see the paperwork. It's very important for a defence to know when the event started, what the event was for. Even someone mentioned today, what was it for? Was it for a prayer? Or was it for something else? So they refused to give it to me. I emailed Federation Square to get the paperwork. They just ignored me. I got Federation Square on the stand. I said, did you have paperwork? Oh, I don't know. They got someone on who didn't know anything, yeah? I asked. And then I said, did you ever get emails from anyone requesting the paperwork? He said, well, vaguely I remember. I go, no, did you? Oh, yeah, I did. I go, did you send it to anyone? And he's like, oh, yeah, I did. I go, who'd you send it to? He said, the police. I go, so the informant has the paperwork. Oh, okay, Your Honour, this is discovery evidence under the Prosecutors Procedures Act. I'm allowed to have this evidence. Prosecutor said, oh, no, it's not important, Your Honour. We don't have to give it to him. It's not important. And the magistrate said, give it to him. Yeah. You have to give it to him. And then they didn't give it to me. And then when sentencing came, in my sentencing submission, I said, I still haven't received that paperwork. That's good evidence. It's good defence evidence, but they're trying to prevent me from having it.
So how would that, if you had that, how would it have helped your case, so to speak?
Well, firstly, it would show who signed up for the area. Secondly, it'll prove if something exists. Now, you got to remember, the paperwork could be just a Federation Square employee saying, I spoke to this person and they've said they're going to come. That's not proper paperwork, yeah? Thirdly, and look, this is, and I don't want to get people off the track. The issue isn't whether it was a public space. It is a public space, even if they've rented a small area. It is a public space. But look, it goes to the intention or what the group is. Now, I'll bring people back to, there's a case, I won't bring it up, it's rather long, but there's a cited case in 1969 of a left-wing journalist. She ended up becoming, she's old, I think she's like 80-something years old now, but she eventually worked for the ABC as a foreign correspondent, massive lefty, and she's anti-Christian. She went to the Sydney Myer Music Bowl in 1969. There was Billy Graham, a massive famous religious preacher from America, who come down, are you typing shit in the chat? He come down to the Sydney Myer Music Bowl. It was a big event. They were praying. They were preaching the word of God. They were reading the Bible. And then everyone was coming up to the stage and saying things, and she come up and said, bullshit. And she threw all these pamphlets, these left-wing pamphlets. She was taken out. One witness in that case seen someone cry, because that's one of the strong elements of my case where I was found guilty, because apparently the witnesses seen on the faces of other people they were really distraught. So it was a big part of my conviction. So here you have a woman who made a Christian woman cry. She was found not guilty. One, the judge said, just because there's religious stuff going on doesn't mean it's a religious event. Okay, in my case, the magistrate said, because there was a group of Muslims there and they kind of prayed the area, you're guilty. Sorry. That's what he said. So it's like I wanted him to go a bit deeper into that. Secondly, the judge in the Victorian Supreme Court, also said, and mind you, she was found not guilty in the magistrates, and the prosecution appealed it to the High Court, the Victorian Supreme Court. So she gets to the Victorian Supreme Court, and the judge says, we don't even know legally what the legal definition for divine worship is. Like, what is it? Because all service to God. Hang on, what's the old saying? It's like all canoes are boats, but not all boats are canoes. So all worship is service to God, but not all service to God is worship. if you know what I mean. So you could say something, but it needs to be legally defined. So what is worship? And is Islam even a religion? That's that. You know what I mean? You got to get into all that kind of stuff. But what say you, Medi?
Well, I'm just curious. So, how was the Sydney Maya Music Bowl situation very similar to the one that you did?
Well, it was in a public space,
Yeah.
the Sydney Mile Music Bowl. I don't think people had to pay for tickets. It was just a public area.
Was the Sydney Maya one advertised as a religious worship event at all?
It was advertised as a religious event. Now, the judge, and I'll be fair, I'll be honest, the judge in that case believed, because there was a couple of people seen drinking alcohol. You got to understand, it was 30,000 people or 100,000 people there.
Yeah, so you don't have that, yeah.
So he said, there's a couple of people drinking alcohol, so they're not really religious, so I guess the whole thing's thrown out. That was his understanding of it. And also, that was the one main thing, and that's what in my submission I said to the magistrate, I said, why didn't you mention this cited case? He said, I did. And the basic difference is, he believes, hang on a sec, he believes because the Muslims said that they'd done some sort of chanting ritual before 1 o'clock, that the area was Islamic. So that is Islamic area now. That was their worship. And it doesn't matter if I come before 1 o'clock, before the organised time, it was a worship before.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, do you know what's interesting is that, what was I going to say? I forgot. Yeah, you know how they argued, or the woman argued that not everyone, so some people were drinking alcohol. I remember when I was in the court and I was hearing, watching the CCTV footage of you and Ricky and I think someone else, I mentioned their name, walking around filming. Not all Muslims were, so there's the Jummah prayer and the Sunnah prayer. So the Jummah one is the group prayer, is that correct?
The Jummah prayer is the prayer that they have, and this is what the media like to talk about, how I was asking them about their religion. Well, this is the point why I wasn't actually being a smartass. A lot of people think, Erikson was probably being I wasn't being a smartass. I was actually just trying to find out what the differences were in each Islamic event. So the Jummah prayer is the Friday prayer. We all know what that is. It's they have to pray between 1 and 2. Probably, I didn't really know the exact time, but I knew they had to pray between a certain time on Fridays. The Jummah prayer is a congregational prayer. Now, this is the key. Now, the prosecution said it's irrelevant. What does congregation have to do with anything? They said, why is Erikson bringing up congregation? Congregation literally means religious worship.
Yes,
and my argument was, well, the congregation, that is the Jummah prayer. And I got the magistrate to see the time of when the incident happened, when there was like 2 or 3 people vaguely praying, maybe. And then I showed him at the Jummah prayer because the police cut all that bit off. But I got one video with that actual incident. So it shows a handful of people when I did it. And then it shows like 20 minutes later, it's just hundreds. And they're all praying in unison, like all of them are together. Yeah. And what I was trying to say is the Jummah prayer is the main prayer. That is their prayer. Now, look, whether or not
1 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
No, that started. So, or the imam of the event was running late, according to the evidence. So Ramzi Al Sayed replaced that imam, who Ramzi Al Sayed admitted himself he wasn't an imam at all at the time, not now. The other witness, Aisha Buck, said he was the imam. Yeah. And I said, well, he just said he wasn't. So is he? She goes, it doesn't matter in Islam. Anyone could be an imam. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's just so flexible, the whole story. It was like insane.
So in Islam, you don't have to have a registered priest like Christianity. You have to be a registered priest. Apparently, according to these people,
see, that's 50-50 because it does say you have to have an imam lead a Jummah prayer, a main prayer. Now, obviously, if the imam was late, he can't come. Maybe you could throw someone in there. But at the time, he's not an imam.
But technically, are they an imam? That's the question. Is imam a loose term that anyone can just adopt and just become an imam in 2 seconds by leading or does that have to be registered? That's the question.
Well, I tried to ask one of the witnesses, the female witness, and I said, well, is the imam like the same as a priest? And she's like, don't insult my religion. I'm trying to get the facts here, yeah? Like, is it equivalent to a priest? And she wouldn't answer. And then, but the thing is, what I want to get out there is the Sunnah prayer is an individual prayer. And it's a pre-prayer, and it's done individually. It doesn't constitute a group of persons praying together. this this magistrate done a bit of research on him. He's Jewish. I'm not going to say that's part of his decision and shit, but he is Jewish, and he was the one who sent Darren Hinch to prison. So I don't know, man. I don't know. But he spent a lot of time researching the case. But the punishment, man, this is insane. Like for a 3-month maximum summary offence, I don't think people actually understand how serious some laws are. Like shoplifting. If you steal a Mars bar, it's 5 years maximum for shoplifting. When me and Ricky were at court for the Milo fight, when I pulled that cunt in the jaw and split his jaw open, bonked him over the head, both them charges, affray and assault with weapon, they carry 10 years each, 10, 15 years each. Yeah, and I got a corrections order of 100 hours or something. Like, it wasn't that bad, but this one is a 3-month maximum. It's a summary offence. Summary offence could be driving, changing lanes incorrectly. And I'm getting all these restrictions. I can't be near a mosque, but within 100 meters. I can't associate with anyone from nationalist groups. I have to undergo re-education program. Like, it's fucking insane. Like, all for a summary offence.
Yeah.
You know?
Let's explore like the conditions of your IVO or whatever it's going to be called later on.
And I can't do videos like this. This is why I'm doing a video now, because I won't be able to do this in the future. So yeah.
I was going to say, I remember during the court case, I was texting you because I was hoping you can argue something. But basically, when I saw am I allowed to say what I saw in the footage, CCTV, or a bit? I think I can.
Whatever was shown in court, in open court, you can talk about. Yeah,
cool. So
you just can't show it.
Yeah, I don't have the footage anyway, so all good. So everyone, just so you understand, I saw at Fed Square, there's a lot of cameras everywhere, and they're really good quality cameras, but the CCTV footage was very clean and crisp, and it wasn't, the pixels were there was a lot of pixels, fantastic quality, and basically I could see about half the people before 1 o'clock, half the Muslims, sort of, go like that. What's it called? Kneeling down or genuflecting. That's the technical term. Half the Muslims are genuflecting, the other half weren't. And I was trying to tell Neil, try and, when you cross-examine Aisha or Al-Sayed or whatever, try and determine whether the Sunnah, whatever, that's when you do it by yourself. You do it before the Jummah prayer, which is the group prayer. According to Ayesha Bucks, part of Islam is before the group prayer, you do the individual prayer, which is the Sunnah prayer. And half the people were doing the Sunnah prayer before 1 o'clock. But the other half weren't. And that struck me. So I'm looking at the footage, and I clearly see that there's a bit of a contrast between what Ayesha Bucks is saying and what I'm seeing in front of me, because clearly not all Muslims were doing the individual Sunnah prayer. So I was trying to tell you, Neil, that maybe you should ask whether the Sunnah prayer is 100% part of Islam, or maybe is it just a certain school of thought that's what constitutes prayer. So maybe not all Muslims.
Well, I did look into it. I did look into the Sunnah prayer at great length, and I found out that Muhammad, back in the days when he was around, he always prayed in the Sunnah solo, and basically Islam is imitating Muhammad. So Muhammad would pray solo in the Sunnah, and Sunnah is one of the 5 prayers that they should do daily. It's the ones you see him doing in the airport, and I did bring that up. I was trying not to be disrespectful. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful in the cross-examination, but I said, is it like the ones you see people doing in the airport? He said, yeah, same one. He said the Jummah prayer has to be at least 3 people. So that was an argument there, but I was going to touch on something else. This is the other thing. So this is where it becomes, I don't even blame these Muslim people, this is the Victorian police, because you had the 2 witnesses who were allegedly affected by the incident, who both claimed they were not disturbed. Now, the first one, Ramzi Al-Sayed, I said, when I come in, did the megaphone, were you disturbed at all? He said, no, I wasn't disturbed. He goes, I was offended, but not disturbed. I asked the Ayesha Bucks, I said, were you, I asked, because in her statement, so and the magistrate knows she was talking a bit of lies, man, because she said in her statement that she was putting out prayer mats. There's nothing in her statement.
And she wasn't disturbed as well.
Well, she didn't say anything. She just said, there was a big statement. I can't really tell you unless it was in court, but I did read this part. she was putting out prayer mats at the time, and she was waiting for the big event, Jumu'ah prayer, yeah? So she was waiting for so when I was cross-examining her, all of a sudden now on the witness stand, she was praying. She goes, I was praying. I said, okay, well, how come in your statement you said you were putting out mats at the time? She goes, I was putting out mats and praying. I said, praying, were you praying on the footage? Can I see? She goes, no, I was praying in my mind. She goes, I was chanting. I said, oh, okay. She goes, I'm chanting now. I chant and pray every day, 24 hours a day. And I said, well, am I disturbing you now while I'm talking to you? She said, no, I can't be disturbed when I'm chanting. Yeah? So I said to Your Honor, there is no complainant here. Both alleged victims, both parties have said I haven't disturbed them. And then the prosecution started saying, oh, well, disquiet as well. It's disquiet. But that wasn't an argument because they're in the middle of the city. You can't expect to not be disquieted in the city. So there I had a slam dunk case, and the prosecutor was sweating. He knew that was fucked up. He's like, so who's the complainant? The Victorian police? Let's get to the other thing. So when I was arrested by the cops, you see, and this is not part of the case, yeah. So when I was dragged away, by the Victorian police, it's very dramatic. I've been detained by the police multiple times. No secret. They detain you on breach of the peace, which isn't a charge. It's just a public order. We give the police under common law, English law, we give them the power to enforce executive powers if they have to. Yeah, and that's for any. And like, I'm not totally against it. Like, if some dude is going to get murdered, yeah, you got to save the dude. You know, like you got to kind of. But they use it obviously in stupid ways. But they arrested me or detained me, handcuffed me, threw me in the thing. As I was walking down the stairs, he said, mate, you're going to thank me later. His name's Acting Detective Kelly. He said, you're going to thank me later. They were going to tear you apart up there. You can see this, you hear this on the video because I had a mic lapel and the cops didn't know I had that. And you can hear him. He's like, you're going to get teared apart, mate. I just saved your ass. He goes, what are you doing and shit like this? And then under cross-examination, I said, because they kept showing how I was getting arrested, trying to mix that into the charge. Had nothing to do with the charge at all. And then he said, I go, why did you, handcuff me and take me away? He goes, I thought, honestly, I'm going to be honest, I thought he was going to get lynched. I thought these Muslims were going to lynch him. And when he said that, I'm like, fuck, like this guy doesn't give a shit. He just said, yeah, they're going to lynch me. So that is a good argument to say, well, this wasn't a peaceful event. If they can lynch someone like that, that's not a peaceful event.
And therefore, is it religious? Or, is it religious, or maybe Islam is violent, What do they want? It's like whatever you say, it's a double-edged sword for these guys,
Well, that's it. And this is what I was afraid of when I get to court. The emotions, the subjective emotions will own the day. And that's the problem. Like, I don't want to say this magistrate didn't spend a lot of time in this case. He did, surprisingly. And I did do a lot of research on him. He's actually against the magistrate's court, the way they conduct cases, because it's like a supermarket, yeah? And it is. Like, he wants to spend more time on cases. He did spend a lot of time, but I don't know what he was doing because he didn't address any of my strong arguments. In his guilt verdict, when he was reading out why I was guilty, he ignored my strong arguments and just mentioned my so-called weak arguments. Now, one of my arguments was the Charter of the Human Rights. Now, everyone's got to understand the Charter of Human Rights is useless. It is totally a useless document. Blair Cottrell tried to use it in the county court for us being able to express ourselves politically, political expression, etc. My defense in this case was religious defense, which is different to the political expression, because the religious defense doesn't have a subsection. It doesn't say you can have religious freedom to demonstrate or preach your Christian or religious values. So it doesn't have a subsection. Okay, so you can do that flat out, not like the political one where it says you can have these rights as long as you don't impede other people's rights or offend other people. Now, he threw that out. He said it was laughable that I used it. Now, I said that Muhammad was a false prophet, which is a religious stance, and I believe that. I'm a Christian. I'm allowed to say that in public. He said that's laughable because you're saying that they don't have rights. If you did, he goes, no, because you offended them. He didn't say this, but he basically meant it. Because you offended them, you renege your rights under the Charter. So my question is, what political or religious position can someone hold that doesn't offend somebody? It's useless.
Yeah. Well,
the Charter's not meant to protect popular speech. It's meant to protect all speech.
Yeah. I was wondering, were there any funny highlights during the whole saga? that you can recall from the court case? Anything funny?
Anything funny? I don't know if it's a laughing matter. Sorry if my eyes are watering. I'm just coughing. I've got like itchy throat. What happened? I don't know. Do you remember anything? You were watching.
Oh, I think I was kicked out for about 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that. Yeah, Medi got kicked out of the case. Because when you're in the case as a guest, you're not meant to have your video on, yeah? Medi had his video on like this, and he's going, like when there was like funny things and shit. Like he thought it was a YouTube live video.
Well, what happened? What happened? What made me laugh was what happened with the Aussie comment. So you said something about the Aussie accent or something. Yeah.
So it wasn't just her. There was a couple of statements because there was 3 witnesses from the event together that were there, and they all mentioned this. Is what I found very strange. Reading through the statement, they all mentioned that the person who did this, which was me, had a thick Australian accent. And I was like, what the fuck does this mean?
That's a direct quote, yeah? Direct quote, thick Australian accent. They said
thick Australian accent, and the other quote, which I won't read, I don't think I'm allowed to read if they haven't used it in court, but they basically said in different ways he had a thick Australian accent or a thick Australian accent. I think they all said that. So I cross-examined Aisha Bucks, and I said, you said that I had a thick Australian accent, and she said yes. And I said, what country do you live in? And she said Australia. Like, I just think it was insane. Like what? It's like me going to America, yeah, and committing a crime. And someone committed a crime against me in America, and then I said he had a thick American accent. Like fucking, of course. I don't know. It just shows me. Maybe I don't know. I could be wrong, but it just shows to me that this person views themselves different to us.
But not to say it seems a bit, how do I put this without sounding, I don't know, it sounds a bit racist to me. It's like she's differentiating herself from us, and she's like, oh, I had a thick Aussie accent. Like, that's a bad thing. She's associating your actions, which she considers to be really evil and offensive, with Australianism. You know what I mean? So she's
the ironic thing is, I get told by a lot of nationalists I sound like a leb. Because I grew up in the northern suburbs. I'm Irish and Swedish. Yeah, my last name's Erikson. I'm fully white, like part Aryan. And the reason I talk like this is because I'm from the northern suburbs, from your people, the Greeks, the Lebs. I talk like this because I used to hang out with them at school and shit like that. That's the funny thing. I actually don't have a thick Australian accent for her to say that, but yeah, I don't know.
But when you questioned her and you said that, the judge got angry, and she got angry, and then I was laughing my head off because I had my camera on. And I started laughing my head off.
Oh, yeah, you were laughing, and then you got kicked. 2
seconds later, I'm out of I get put in a virtual lobby, and I'm like, what the fuck happened? And I called the court, and I asked them what's going on, and they told me that I was being a very naughty boy, and that I'm not allowed to laugh and act inappropriately during.
Well, technically, you shouldn't, because you're making me look bad. You
don't look bad, though, man. You don't need me to look bad.
Well, wait to the next case. This is like B grade stuff. The next case is going to be it's going to be pretty hectic. But I'm not going to get too much into my defense on that one. But let's just say it's a very different set of circumstances. And it's going to be a lot harder for them to get a conviction. I think doesn't mean I'm not going to get convicted. But anyway, they were going to try and lock me up for this. That is insane.
3 months. 3 months they asked for. 3 months.
They asked for 3 months.
We shouldn't forget that. That's the maximum term you could have got, and they asked for it. And that just shows to me that since 2014 at least, we know there's a pattern of behaviour from Victoria Police, counter-terrorism unit, whatever, and they just want you in prison. And right now, the least they can get is maybe not prison, but at least not allowing you to associate with certain right-wing groups that have been in the media recently, namely NSN and UPF.
Oh, look, don't get me wrong. I think he's fair for not imprisoning me, but I'm not trying to act like a sick cunt and shit. But if they think prison is going to deter me, I'm not trying to be not deter me. But if you think I haven't done shit for 2 years, almost 2 years, I've done nothing. I just basically work. I do my own thing. I shit post. I don't do anything. I don't do stunts like I used to, because and to think of it, I should get props by the magistrate because I've been in this game since fucking 2012, and the biggest charges I've ever got is just the Milo fight, prank calls, which I wouldn't call that activism. That was just a LARP. the prank calls, the inciting religious contempt, and now these charges. There should be some consideration there. It's very hard to go to a protest and not get fucking arrested.
Yeah.
A lot of people know that, and especially when you're a public figure and shit, and you're targeted. Do you know how many rallies I went to where I was nearly fucking killed going home, or nearly got into a fist fight, or did? Who knows? And I could have been in a lot of trouble. I got beat. That's another thing. Let's talk about this. 2016. This charge, disturbing religious worship. Yeah. 2016. I'm outside a Scotch church, just randomly. The left think I planned this. I didn't. I was going to the what was that? Political group in 2015 or 16, the one that Angry Anderson was in. What's it called? I forget what it is. Q Society group. What is it?
Yes, Q Society.
The Liberty Alliance, the Australian Liberty Alliance.
Australian Liberty Alliance. Yeah.
So I was going to their event, and I had my video camera. I met my mate at the pub, and then when he got to the pub, he said, "Mate, there's a major protest going on around the corner." I said, "Bullshit." I go, "Let's go over have a look." So I started filming it. I was outside a Scotch church. There was a bunch. They were discussing. They had some American preacher there talking about gay marriage, etc. And they were fucking attacking old women walking into worship and shit. No one got charged for disturbing religious worship. They blocked the doors. They pushed an old woman down the stairs. I got bashed. I got this video of it. I got bashed. I got my head split open. I got kicked on the ground.
You got fingered, mate.
Well, I don't know about that. I think that was a bit of a laugh. But I got bashed, dragged to the ground. No one's ever been charged.
Exactly.
And this is what pisses off. And the thing is, if they want me to do a de-radicalization program, I'll tell them what will radicalize people. And I'll tell you what will radicalize people. When you ostracize them from society, do the same textbook for Islam. If you really think we're that bad, do the same textbook for Islam. You're isolating young guys from society. You're making it impossible for them to get work. You are isolating them from their family and friends, making them look like the devil, which they're not. They just have some nationalist beliefs, just like communists do. They can have their own beliefs, and you're basically making this person. The media do a lot of that too. Guardian articles about just some. These people don't want to be public. Yeah, they're on some group and they say something racist, all of a sudden it's mainstream news, their lives are destroyed. That will create radical activists. I'm telling you, that will create it. So I think the government want somebody to do something. I spoke to a few nationals, I won't name, high-ranking ones, and we all agree. We think that the government is actually hoping someone does something.
Yeah.
They're not openly doing it, but they're just turning a blind eye to certain acts and certain ways they treat nationalists. Dude, I'm telling you, man, like you destroy a guy's life, man. He's got nothing left. What do you think? That is a radical. Like, come on. Leave him alone, dude. Most of these people, like that dude who was shitposting, I don't know too much about it, but from what I read, it's just shitposting. Talking shit. Doesn't mean he's going to go to jail for 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think it's cruel. But we all knew this was coming. This is the communist takeover. This is how it starts. And eventually they'll start, arresting us. He's a nationalist. Let's go get him and put him in a gulag. It's going to happen. And if these boomers think that democracy is going to last, they're dreaming. This is a new concept. I mean, it happened back in the Roman days. It was the fall of Rome. But democracy in its form now is not going to last forever. Something's going to come again. Like, there'll be maybe communism, there will be, feudalism or some other ideology. This is not going to last forever. Wait till the money runs out. Okay?
Yeah,
and you got to choose a side. You got to choose a side when the money runs out. And in Germany, they chose a side. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I think Tom Sewell's done a lot of commentary on that through his podcast. So if you're interested,
I'll let him talk about that philosophy. I'm not a very. I don't read that much.
If anyone's interested in what Neil's referring to, just go to Tom Sewell's Telegram and watch all his podcasts.
And go to Blair. Blair's a smart dude too. They're both equally smart. But look, this democracy is not going to last forever. The government knows this. They've got scientists like imagine the money they spend on the CIA, ASIO, etc. Do you think they're just spending that on like listening to people? They're spending to understand like social change, like what's going to happen. How's there? And when the police used to ring me for rallies, they would always ask, "What's the mood, Erikson? What's the mood out there?" Like what they're doing is they're trying to get a touch on the mood and what's going on, because these guys have scientists. They have social. I don't know what they're called. What are they called? Social scientists. They know what will, like, they knew that everyone's going to cuck and wear a mask. Like it's already written in the history books what people can do under authoritarianism or whatever it is.
I can say with absolute confidence that I've spoken to someone who I'm not going to name, who was a member of a certain right-wing group in Australia, which I'm not going to name either. But this person told me in confidence that he was approached by government security, so to speak, and he was asked to leak information to them about this group that he was part of. So when you said, Neil, before about they want to know the mood, right now it seems like, for a while, but especially recently with certain right-wing groups that have been in the media, they definitely want to know more about who's involved, names, faces, what they're thinking, what they're saying. Because this person I know told me that he was approached, they met at a restaurant or whatever, and they basically asked him for information, which he didn't give, obviously. But definitely, with what's happening in New Zealand, with what's been happening around the world, Black Lives Matter, and what we've seen globally, they definitely want to know who's saying what people are saying. I think it's like a big net. They're just chucking a big net, and whatever they get, because there might be someone who's part of these groups that is planning something. That's their mentality. That they just want to chuck a big net. Information is power. The more information you have, the more you can sift through, and then more chance of you finding someone who is going to, become a terrorist.
But this is the thing. I think a lot of these cops know a lot of this is bullshit. This is all media generated. It's left-wing hype. The discussions I used to have with police and ASIA, not much, but the discussions through rallies and a couple of phone calls when they rang me, they know it's trumped up. The 40%, what is the saying? Causation doesn't equal, what is it?
Correlation does not equal causation.
Exactly, and the 40% they're talking about, that's just because there's more people reporting right-wingers. The thing is, I honestly believe the counter-terrorism police are sitting around playing Scrabble all day, man. I don't believe, like, I had a couple, I'll tell you a funny story. I had a couple of cops, all right, so I won't say where I live, but I live in multiple places, yeah? I was living in South Yarra for a few years. No one even knew. That's why I was always on the scene in the city for a long time. But the police thought I lived in Wonthaggi, which I did, technically. An inspector and a high-ranking detective drove all the way out there, yeah? They knew I wasn't there. They drove 2.5 hours from Melbourne to there. I get a phone call saying they're looking for me. I ring them up. They go, "Hey, what's going on, Neil? Where are you?" I said, "I'm not there." They go, "Yeah, we just want to get out for the day." I'm telling you, they don't have anything to do. So they come all the way back to Melbourne, and I met them in Melbourne, like where they left. They left the police station. I was right next to the police station in the city at the pub. And they come back and spoke to me then. And that officer, he's I think he's one of the high-ranking ones of the counter-terrorism. He's actually not a bad dude. But, yeah, the thing is, none of us are going to do anything. And they know, like when we had UPF and shit, I know that was yonks ago, but we had some crazy people try and join and hang around. We fucking just ran from them, man. Like there was Phil Galea, we knew about him, like vaguely, like we told everyone we knew. I told a close mate of mine, just stay away from him, like he's fucked up. We don't encourage that behavior. We don't, because we know that's going to fucking destroy everyone. We don't want that. And secondly, it's not politically viable. Brenton Tarrant, I know a lot of people shitpost about him and laugh and all this, but at the end of the day, we all know what he did fucked us, and it fucked us bad. I don't know if he was trying to accelerate something. What was he trying to accelerate? The Gulag?
Well, yeah.
We're not big fans of that shit. So
to be honest, like, let's just say what happened in New Zealand never happened. I honestly think that we'd still have the same laws at some point. It might take a year or two later, it would have happened. So the way I see it, New Zealand or not, it would have happened anyway. But you're right, he did have an impact because right after what happened, my channel got destroyed. I think
we all, yeah.
Everyone got zapped, basically, pretty much in Australia.
And we got zapped, and I had a mate, Scotty Morland, who uploaded a video of mine from Telegram. It literally was up for 2 minutes. He lost his account that he's had for like 10 years, just gone. Just for uploading a video of me. Gone, lost all his photos.
I did a photo of you and Blair outside County Court doing this symbol here, and on my page, and my personal profile got zapped as well. And I had all my photos from high school, from which I don't have anymore, unfortunately. But yeah, and that was just my page. My actual profile got zapped that I had for like 6 years or whatever.
Well, I had some close friends that weren't political, but I had them on my Facebook pages as admins, because remember it was around that time where it was very hard to keep an account, even before the big purge. It was very hard to keep an account. I kept getting banned, so I'd get another account. I had personal friends on those pages as admins, so they can re-add me back. All them personal friends who didn't contribute to the page, didn't post, who's not political, they all lost their accounts with everything on it. And there's no coming back from that. You can't ask them, can I get my photos? Can I get this? No, they're not going to give it to you.
I was going to say, just to go back to the court case just very briefly, and we can come back to this other stuff after.
Yep.
I'm going to share. This is my first time using StreamYard, but if I press share on the bottom, will that share my screen yet?
You just make sure you don't have Pornhub up or anything, bro.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they'll
share screen. Yeah, I'll add it in, but so just go share screen, show your screen, and I'll have to allow it in. Make sure you click on volume if you want volume, and make sure it's not copyrighted either.
No, it's not. It's just an article. That's all. Oh shit. Hopefully this works. All right, here we go. I'll just ask permission to share screen.
Yep. Yep, so you want to click on the article.
Okay, I just did.
Yeah, but you sent me this earlier, but this is from like a few years back, bro. You know that, yeah?
That's fine. It's still relevant, because what I'm trying to get at, mate, is what's it called? So the reason why I bring this up for everyone is one of the guys, Ramzi Al Sayed, he was the one of the representatives from ICV, Islamic Council of Victoria. And just so everyone knows, ICV have worked in the past and probably are still working.
Yeah, so Ramzi Al Sayed was the man in my witness in my case, yes. Yeah?
So I know for a fact, because I've read other articles, not this one, that prove that ICV and Victoria Police have had a connection to help stop radicalised people. They've definitely worked together in the past on that front, and I'm assuming they're still working together to try de-radicalise people. But I'm just trying to point out that organisations matter. If you're a member of an organisation, you should understand all the bad stuff they've done. I mean, everyone's happy to criticise UPF and other groups for being racist or whatever, and by extension, people that are members. So if someone like you, Neil, you're a member of, UPF, therefore you're a racist. So if you become a member of another organisation, if that organisation has done something really bad in the past, you're seen as being okay with that. So the same applies to Muslims as well. So if Ramsey is going to come to us and say he believes in diversity and doing the right thing, and he's against racism, and he supports, not being radical and all this sort of good stuff, then how come he's part of an organisation that have been in the media, albeit 10 years ago, regarding, sorry, not 10 years ago, this is actually 4 years ago, regarding safe places. So basically, similar to safe spaces, the Islamic Council of Victoria was proposing to create Muslim safe spaces, so rage rooms. I'll just read the article quickly. ICV said its proposal for safe spaces for Muslim youth at risk of radicalisation should not be misconstrued as an avenue for them to express extreme or violent views. Victoria will review the ICV state government funding after the proposed safe spaces where youth could express inflammatory views. So basically, these safe spaces would have encouraged, radical terrorists or would-be terrorists to basically promote their extreme views as a way to somehow create discussion and undermine. I don't know what the logic was, but essentially, ICV was saying that we should have a space where people can express their hate and their radicalism. Moving on, it says Victoria will review the Council of State Government funding. Okay, because of this, even Premier Daniel Andrews said he was, quote unquote, very troubled at the suggestion. There is no safe way to rail against the West. There is no safe way to rail against the values that we hold dear, Mr. Andrews told reporters. So yeah, that's fair enough. But essentially, ICV isn't necessarily some, peachy organisation that, is, pristine. They've definitely got views that are extreme, that are ridiculous. And that's just important to be wary of that. And I'm just wondering, does Ramsey LC support this sort of stuff? I mean, he's one to criticise you and, is all what you did, but surely this is a lot worse.
No, the funny, I don't think he did criticise me at all. I don't know too much about his history.
ICV did. I mean, I know that ICV.
They did. Yeah.
But what you did, I compare what you did, which lasted probably 40 seconds, mate.
No, it was 33 seconds.
33 seconds. Compare what Neil did, 33 seconds, with this proposal here. And this is just one article I found of one issue that the ICV have done. There's probably a lot of things that they've said that are ridiculous, but this is just one of them. And it just makes me angry, the hypocrisy of these people criticising Australians like me and you, who should be here, and people that shouldn't be here don't get any criticism.
Well, let's not get racist now, Medi. Come on, man.
Oh, sorry, mate. Sorry. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry.
Didn't you know a mouse, when it's born in a stable, it becomes a horse? Man. Come on.
Forgot, mate. My apologies.
Look, you have a good point there, man. Like the funny thing is, like, what Sewell is trying to do, he's trying to set up, from what I've heard him speak, he's trying to set up a community organisation. And I've got another nationalist mate who's trying to do the same. The problem is the community organisations, and in that article I read it earlier, they were using the Charter of Human Rights for rights of worship, etc., to get money off the government as funding. The problem is, like, when I grew up, I'm an Aussie, yeah? You're different, you're a Greek. But Aussies, we've lost our community, man. Like, you have the Greek Orthodox Church, you have the Greek community areas. So I grew up with a lot of Serbs, very community orientated. All these, like, Muslims, they have their kebab stores, their shika coffee shops, which actually aren't bad. I go in there, not anymore, but I used to go in there a lot when I was younger. I like that community element, but the white Australians, and I know it's a cultural thing, like they say, Muslims are allowed to have there because they're Muslim, or Greeks because they're from a foreign land. We're losing our culture, and our Australian culture isn't about meat pies and football. The Australian culture is a larrikin culture. It's a Ned Kelly culture. I could go on all day about the Australian culture and what it means to be Australian, our history, our diggers, always have honour, mateship. That is something the other countries don't have. Why can't we have a community organisation such as what Sewell is proposing? But he'll never get funding, or any other person, to have a community organisation for Anglo-Saxons or German. I think we have a little bit of German community areas, but what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Like, why can't we all have a piece of that? Like, because when I grew up, a lot of Aussie families was just mum and dad, like, and they had some uncles, maybe some aunties here and there. There was no real community feel to it. But definitely in the Serbian communities, they had to go to community events, like they had to go and show honour of the family and represent the family. We should have the same here. But obviously the government are trying to replace us. It's the great replacement. What say you?
That's the thing, is that Sewell mentioned in one of his podcasts, he made a very good point about the Muslim community in Australia. And he recently did a video about some Indian building that they got funding. And basically these community groups, let's just say stick with the Muslims, he argued that they have more metapolitical power than us Aussies, us white Australians, because they can basically ask for funding and they'll get it. And if something happens, they'll mobilise. So what happened years ago with where Muslims went nuts and they started protesting in Sydney because of some cartoon that happened like 7 years ago during Julie Gillard's time. they just mobilised, and that's community. We like it or not, that's a form of political power, and they're congregating. They've got their own suburbs. Where are the Australian suburbs that are just purely Australian and white? I don't see many left, if any, and they're being slowly invaded by foreigners. But the point I was trying to make was that if those communities that were 95% white, for example, asked for an Australian cultural hub or an Australian cultural centre where they can promote Henry Lawson poems or real Australian culture, like I used to talk about on my YouTube channel. I highly doubt that the media and the powers that be would give those people grants to create those cultural hubs and those programs because it will be seen as racist. Whereas the Muslims and the Greeks and other communities doing exactly the same thing, and good on them. Let's face it. At least they're smart. As much as I hate it, they're just doing what we're giving them. They're taking from us. How come we're not doing the same thing that they're doing? Because if we did, it would be a lot harder to destroy us, and we wouldn't be losing our culture so quickly. We can't even say Happy Australia Day. We can't even just today. Just today, for example, I read an article about the New South Wales Education Department and the Education Minister. There's this program called No Room for Racism or something. I forgot what it's called. It's something to do with racism. And they're basically teaching kids not to be racist in kindergarten or something, year 1, year 2 kindergarten. And if you go on the website, kind of like Safe Schools or the Safe Schools programs where you have resources, if you go on this particular website, which is used by teachers to combat racism, there's actually games and programs to teachers to do it in class. And one of those, essay topics or whatever it is basically asking kids, if you could change the Australian flag, what would you change it to? That's the means is offensive. The fact that you're asking that question, you're basically endorsing this idea that we should change the Australian flag. Whether you like it or not, when you ask kids, what should we change the Australian flag to, as an essay question, you are basically telling kids,
it's a leading question. Exactly. It's a leading question. It's like, when was the last time you beat your wife, or something like? It's like a loaded question. It's like they're not giving you the option of saying, "Hey, I don't want to change it."
Exactly. Exactly, and that's what makes me angry.
But look, we could open up that whole. There's many examples of that, but I think it comes down to, look, what does the Australian flag represent now? What does the government represent now? It doesn't represent Australia. The diggers weren't these anti-fascist, pro-immigration crusaders. The diggers, mate, they were Aussie larrikins, mate. And when they went to war, it was under the White Australia policy. Our whole history is being replaced. And I'm not saying they were racist, but I'm saying if we are classed as far-right extremists, back in the 70s, 60s, and 50s, what were they? Because our ideas aren't much different to the 70s and 80s. If we went back in time and were dropped in the 70s and 80s, we would be like, they'd probably think, well, betas, mate. What are you talking about? Yeah, they were progressive, like you fucking lefty. Like, that's how much times have changed. The Liberal Party has gone further to the left. The Labor Party's gone further to the left, and the Greens are an outright communist party. What the left have done is genius, man. They've actually just changed the goalposts. The Liberal Party, like a lot of these liberal, like what is it, Scott Morrison? I don't know his position, but I'm pretty sure he's pro-abortion. All these people who claim to be Christians and they're pro-abortion and these churches and they're pro all sorts of shit. Like the goalposts have been moved so far to the left. They've like said, all right, right versus left. Okay, let's just move the right and the left over here, and then they'll forget that there was actually something there. It's like an old empty space that no one remembers. But hey, we've gone an hour, man. If you just want to do a closing comment, we'll get off.
I just want to say one more thing that I think is very important, because there are a lot of people losing faith, and maybe they're talking in a way. I understand where you're coming from. Like, for example, you said, what do the Australian flag stand for? It says a sodomy, gay rights, and trans, and you know what? Yeah, I understand why you're saying that. I understand where you're coming from. But one thing that I would like to make clear where I'm coming from, I don't see the Australian flag represents that. Okay, I think that there's the nation and the state, and the flag, okay, represents the nation state, but it also represents, in my opinion, first and foremost, the nation as a living entity, as a growing entity, a living entity that has a lot of history, that's based in biology, and that exerts itself through expression of culture and beauty and all that sort of stuff. Now, the point I'm trying to make is that when we look at the Australian flag, we should be reminded of not John Howard, not Scott Morrison, not the state, not the fact that we have abortion laws in Victoria that allow for fucking abortion up until birth, not safe schools, not any of these anti-racist laws that they're trying to increase and strengthen. It makes it illegal to call someone the N-word, for example, which I do all the time in my own time, which is fine. But the point is that we should look at the flag and be reminded of the Anzacs and what they fought for, white Australia, Captain Cook, the pioneers, Henry Lawson, all the great things about Australia.
And Cook's convicts. Cook's convicts
Cook's
too.
convicts. So I don't want people to think, the Australian flag represents gay. No, it represents the nation state. Unfortunately, the nation state has become un-Australian, but at the very least, we should still recognise the Australian flag should remind us of all the great things, even if, unfortunately, the nation state has deviated from everything our ancestors have fought for. So, unfortunately, it's become a symbol of the nation state, but we shouldn't see it that way. We should see it as a symbol of the nation. And hopefully one day when things change, the ideas of the nation correspond with the nation state. When we come to power, hopefully we can bring things back to normal and start deporting people, that sort of good shit, and start reclaiming our culture.
Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%. I'll just point out this comment here, which is exactly my belief, and it's always been the media and the government. Look what's going on recently. I won't get too much into it, but the government are being held on the fire, or their feet are on the fire because of the media. The government danced to the media's tune, and I believe this is a product of a left-wing Marxist education system that churned out all these journalists, and all these leaders of the communist revolution are all sipping their wine in the Blue Mountains and eating their fancy cheese, watching what they created. The media are the architects of the society we're living in now, and they slowly wore down the conservatives because conservatives are weak. Conservatives apologise. They don't understand how to be defensive. They do understand how to be defensive. They don't understand how to be offensive. When was the last time the Liberal government implemented a law or an initiative that actually helped us, like, at all? They've basically been playing defense for the last fucking 20 years. They have done nothing. Like, I think there was one thing that happened the other day. What was it? Pauline Hanson, I think, put it in. What was it? About gender. Gender is a male and a female, etc. They all signed up. That's the one thing I can think of that they did that was offensive.
But she wants to ban the Nazi flag, Pauline Hanson, and the communist flag.
Well, it's going to be hard to ban the Nazi flag because, hey, I'm a Hindu, bro. No, I shouldn't say that. But people are Hindus, yeah? And are you going to ban that emblem? And the other thing is, I always thought of this. I was thinking about this today. I was high pressure washing a rug outside, yeah? And it took like a small layer of dirt on the asphalt on the ground. What would happen if someone went out and cleaned graffiti and just cleaned it in the shape of a swastika? Like, is that classed as like painting one? I don't think so.
I think, mate, to be honest,
that would be a good way out.
I think it's the actual Nazi flag with the the maroon, whatever color it is. I don't think the symbol itself. Because I've been on bike rides near my neighborhood, and I drove past a house that had a swastika on it, and it was clear that they were Hindus. They weren't Nazis. So I think this is specific just for that particular flag. I think if you still drew the swastika, in a different form, it'll be okay, or you wouldn't become under the law. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you want to release the secret tonight?
What secret?
The big secret. I was talking to you about it the other day. I think it's time we actually released it. All right, we'll release the secret. Zavir Abramovich. Is that how you spell his last name?
Oh, he didn't spell it, but Abramovich or whatever.
Yeah. He's that Jewish anti-Nazi campaigner. You've probably noticed a lot of his work. He complains about certain swastikas and shit in his area. He actually goes to kids' schools and, attacks the teachers not attacks, sorry, talks to the teachers if a student says something that's slightly anti-Semitic. It's like, isn't that funny? It's kind of like a troll. Do you think it's like a troll? Because we found out that he's actually trolling. He's actually, I don't want to say, I shouldn't probably say it. Just use your imagination. The guy is not legit. The guy is not legit.
All I know is he's very annoying. He's just constantly.
That's the trick. That's the troll. I'm telling you, that's the troll.
Yeah.
That's the troll. All right, we'll leave on that note with the blue people. But
yeah, but the thing is,
do you want to know what book? Do you know what book I took? I was going to take to prison. Did you see it?
No.
I was going to take a book to prison. Put it in my bag. Everyone was asking me what book I took. The Controversy of Zion. Good book. That's the book I packed. I don't know if it would have went through, but I didn't take any other like Mein Kampf or anything like that. That would obviously
You've already read that one.
Yeah, I read that many years ago. I forget half of it. It's a very boring book, but it has a lot of good shit in it. It does have a lot of good shit, but it's boring. It's not a very good read. But it does have. I like the first couple of chapters about natural selection and shit. But look, he was a great figure in history, whichever way you want to throw it. He was a great figure, just like Stalin was. Just like all these other figures on the communist side, he was a great figure. If you can get the left and right to join each other, mate, you're doing something right. Because that's the trick. That's the trick, and it's very hard to do. So you've got to give him props for that. All right, I'll let you go. Thanks for helping me out with the case, Medi. And on to the next case.
Well, just want to say it was good working with you, Neil. Like it was a bit hectic at times, but it was worth it. Like a lot of late calls and editing and shit. But it was all worth it because
I've got year 8 level education. I can write all right, but I don't know where to put all that fucking dots and shit sometimes. So Medi helps me out with the editing and gives me some good ideas. So thank you, Medi.
I think where to from here. I think in May. That's when the conditions of your community corrections order will be determined. Is that correct?
That's correct. Corrections need some time. I think they need 6 weeks to figure out exactly how to word it. Because usually corrections orders, I mean, there are cases like mine where there's kind of weird rules involved, but I think they want to actually go and figure it out how they're going to write it. Because it's like a contract, if you know what I mean. It's like you want to make sure the contract's bulletproof. So I think they go in to write the rules, 100 meters from a mosque. But at the end of the day, it could be revoked. I could still go to jail. There's still a chance of that. I'm going to be taking my jail back. So we'll see. And if, whatever happens, I'm definitely going to appeal. I told the magistrate. So once I appeal, I think it gets put on hold.
So we'll keep everyone posted on what happens in May. And the other Muslim case was the gay case. That's in July. Is that correct?
July 28, and that's a very interesting case. As I said, this law doesn't protect Muslims. Sorry, but this one is an alleged Christian organisation. But there are some issues with the prosecution's case. I'm not going to go saying I'll win, but I'm very confident in my defence, and I just hope I get a fair magistrate. I have had a fair magistrate rarely. It happens rarely. I had one in a certain case with an intervention order from a left-wing activist who. I didn't have to do nothing. I was even arguing something that was irrelevant. Like, he's like, shut up, sit down. He basically told me, shut up. He goes, you know when to stop talking? I go, yeah. He goes, stop talking, sit down. And I sat down and just said, your case is shit. And he just threw it out. So there are some good magistrates out there. And I'd advise everyone, like I said in my last video, you ever arrested by the police? No comment, man. You are not going to talk your way out of a charge. All right? I learned that the hard way years ago. Yeah, you do not say anything.
If anything, they'll just increase the charges because if you say more, they can get you on more, basically.
Well, you think they're just sitting you down to have a chat? You don't think they know what they're going to ask? They're trying to concrete their case because they have to hit certain elements of the charge. So they're not sitting down saying, they'll probably throw in, oh, how's your day? Oh, I think what you're doing's cool. Oh, anyway, what time was it when you were there? Are you sure? Yeah, was it? Oh, that's it. That's an element. Did anyone know about this? Oh, yeah, my mate. Oh, your mate. Who's your mate? Oh, he's all right. Yeah, there's another element. Fucking, that's what they're doing, man. So you're not going to sit there and have a conversation with them. Yeah. All right, boys and girls. Thanks for tuning in. We had some good viewers tonight. I think it was like 65 for the whole show. So thanks, guys.
It was a good update, good chat. All the best with everything, and we'll be doing updates every now and then as they come. But next one will be in May, so we'll let everyone know.
I'm not doing videos, guys. I'm out of kind of politics and shit, but I'll do videos because I think it's interesting in these cases and shit. I don't know what Medi's up to, if you're going to be doing any content, but yeah. So just tune in when I have a case, and I'll go into it with you. And if anyone's interested, obviously some people are interested in it. I think it's very interesting, even like non-related to our nationalism. I think it's an interesting case. Charge has never really been used. Odd charge, it's obscure, it's weird, and we know why the police used it because they're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, because you're a sick cunt, basically.
The only sick cunt is Ricky T to IC. You know that. All right, guys. I'll catch us later. Love yous all.
See you later.
Hey, Stefan, do we do the saw at the end of the show?
No.
No? Who thinks Stefan should do the saw at the end?
No.
I want to see comments.
No.
Should we do the saw? Saw? No saw?
No.
Oh, there's no comments. Come on, Hale Saul. Who wants him to do the Saul goodbye? Here we go. See, look. Come on, Medi. Don't be a girl.
Oh, you do it. You do it then. No.
I've done it before. There's photos of me doing it. Do it, Medi. Do it.
No. Oh, no.
Look, everyone's telling you to do it, Medi. Just do it. Who cares? What do you care what people think? Medi.
Yo.
Do it.
No, hell, I want to
do it. Should I do it? Nah, fuck it.
No, fuck it.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Nah, fuck it. All right, I'm not as strong as some. All right, guys, I'll catch you later.
See you later. Bye.
Love yous all.